Hey everyone, today I want to talk about how audio is routed in the OPZ, and that's going to include a lot of discussion about the mixer page and the track page. So this is more of an intermediate/advanced video. Let me open up the mixer page here, which is that second index button, the one with a long line on it. This is going to, while the sequencer's running, show me the level of all 4 drum tracks, all 4 synth tracks, how much compression is being applied, and then how much of what we're seeing from the master output. You can mute the audio of a track, and that just refers to the audio that's being sent straight from that track to the master track, which I'll get to later by pressing Shift and hitting that track. If it's red, it means that the audio is muted, but it's still sending MIDI and it's still sending more of that signal elsewhere. If the sequencer's running and I hold down track, it's going to show me the levels of each of these tracks. So let me show you what that looks like. Right now I have a just little beat that I'm working on, and I've got it routed through the OPZ sending some audio to an OP1 and a digatone. Those are routed into each other, and then the audio from the digatone is coming out of here, and the MIDI is going out to the digatone. So what we have is mostly, it's entirely external synths, but the drums and effects are, the OPZ is doing a lot for those. So let me just show you what happens when the sequencer's running and I pull up the track page. See it, all 3 of these drums are lit up. The input is lit up. Even though these tracks are sending MIDI, they aren't reproducing any audio, so they aren't lighting up. You can see that the I/O is lighting up. You can see that there's some clipping going on here. And that's all going to be similarly reflected on the master here. And you can see that those drums are slightly clipping a bit too. Okay, so hopefully that gets you a bit oriented. Let's go ahead and talk about the way that the signal actually gets sent. So what happens is there's like a certain, I'll call it like this, like the input layer. And I'm gonna group together 9 tracks, the first 8 tracks and the I/O track, track 14. That's because the I/O track can have inputs from the mic, headset, USB, and line, and I believe it can do all of those at the same exact time. So they all, though, get merged there, and then, you know, all of the filter and all the effects and all the routing gets applied normally from there, but you can't control the individual volume of, like, the USB over the line or anything like that. So in other words, you have these 9 buses, like I said, and they all get routed the same. The way that routing works is that they all have a send to the master track, and then they all have sends to these 3 aux tracks, FX1, FX2, and the tape track. The weird part, and let me just pull up an entirely new project here just to show you what I'm talking about in this case. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if we have a 4 on the floor kick. So let's just set that up. And we have that kick sending to we have it sending to FX1, FX2, the tape track, and the line track, or the line module, sending it out. And we set all those dry levels to 0. That's going to help us figure out what the signal chain actually is here. So I'm set all those dry levels to 0 and sent the kick to all of it. Let's hit play, and then I'm going to hit track to see where the audio is going. Well, in this case, it's actually going nowhere. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to increase the dry level from the module track. And so now that I increase that dry level for the dry signal from the module track, instead of sending the kick completely out, it's sending some of it back to that original signal, which it's then being passed to the tape track. Let me show you how I know that. Because if I have it on beat repeat, then we press play. Let's make sure it's not sending to the effects tracks. We can see that actually it's only coming out of the tape track. So that dry signal is being sent back from the line module, and then it's continuing down the chain, but it's getting interrupted by the tape track. So there's nothing left for FX1. If I increase this dry level, we'll see that there's FX1 now, but it's leaving no dry level left for FX2. Now we have all 4 of them. Except, of course, we don't have the original track. So let's add that in too. Now we can see everything is playing exactly as it should. So now that I've talked a bit about the first 8 tracks and the I/O track, I want to talk about exactly what happens after that first stage. So as we just saw, they do get routed to 4 different aux tracks. It can get routed out of the device completely. I don't know if that counts as an aux track, but then we've got this tape track and these 2 effects tracks. You can get really complicated here because in theory, like this kick, as you saw, the kick has right now, what, 4 or 5 sends? And it can get even more complicated because you could also, on top of that, have the effects track send to effects 1 and 2. Sorry, you can have the tape track send to effects 1 and 2, which just increases even more layers. So I think that's all pretty cool. Okay, so let's talk about the mixer and what it actually does. I used to think the mixer adjusted a drum bus and a synth bus. I no longer think that. I actually think that it just changes the individual track gain for tracks 1 to 4, and this just adjusts the individual track gain, which is CC50, for tracks 5 through 8. Tracks 9 and 10 also have CC50 and respond to gain like that. They don't have a volume, so that can be really useful if you can sequence that with an external piece of gear. Okay, so in other words, we can change the gain of the drum groups and the gain of the synth groups. We also have these 2. Now, I'm not going to touch the master gain yet because I actually don't know where in the signal that comes, and it always seems to make things a bit too loud for me because I kind of crank up the volume anyway. And this is the punch, which is going to affect the amount of compression that's applied as well as the release of the compressor. So I'm going to hit play and I'll show you what those look like. So drum gain. If I increase the master sends, it can make things uncomfortably loud. If I increase this punch, you can hear that it's really running into the compressor, so I can back it off. Okay, that sounds fine. So that's how you would balance the mixer a bit. You might need to hear the drums a bit more, like that. They were a bit quiet for me. And I can see that this light's clipping, but you know, that's fine by me. And now that I've talked a little bit about the mixer, let's go ahead and move on to the master track, which I think is one of the more important parts. So assuming that you have everything leveled out and you've got everything kind of where you want it to be, the master track I think kind of applies that last little bit. So it has chorus and it has drive. Let's go ahead and listen to it with nothing. Now I'll increase the drive and you'll hear the saturation increase. Chorus, this first parameter on the master track, is going to give it a stereo effect. Subtle amount is cool. A lot sounds weird to me. And the middle kind of gives it a neat in-between. So if we add both of those, I think it can pretty dramatically change how the whole track sounds. And then similarly, if I wanted to repeat this part but have it instead be like a verse or a interlude, I could just change it up from this screen alone. Anyway, I just find that kind of fascinating. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's about everything that I know about the way that the audio is routed. So just to give you a high-level summary, you have an input bus, which consists of the mic, headset, USB, and line inputs. That's all processed as a regular track, and it is routed alongside the rest of these audio tracks. And the way that the audio tracks are routed is that they are all sent straight to the master track with 3 possible aux sends, which would be to FX1, FX2, and the tape track. The dry level of those aux sends will determine how much of the signal is left for the other aux sends. So the order of that is, if you have the line module's aux send dry level is going to be the first thing that determines that, or is going to take the signal out. Then if the tape is playing and has no dry level, that'll take the rest of the signal. Then FX1, then FX2. Once all that is done, it all gets routed straight to the master track, where there is some drive or saturation applied, as well as a chorus effect, and then there's that filter at the very end of the chain. In the meantime, or in the middle of it, I believe, is where you get the compressor, and the compressor is going to be that's the punch, and that's going to give it kind of that driving sort of feel to it. Anyway, I hope that all makes sense. This seems like I feel like I just barely understand this stuff, so I'm not sure if I explained it clearly. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.